At Shrewsbury High School. Tonight is our college planning night, so we have 6 college admission representatives here who are going to speak to you. Before we get to that, we're going to do a little slideshow presentation on sort of the beginnings of the college search process and what juniors should be doing at this point. I'm going to invite Mr. Diamantopoulos up, and he's going to start our presentation.
Good evening. Thank you. I think what I'm presenting here will go a little more in depth once we turn the presentation over to the panel, but a few highlights to begin our presentation tonight. Firstly, as you can see on the slide, for a junior year, the obvious points: keep up with your schoolwork. FYI, your GPAs will be updated next week after first semester grades are verified, and then they'll be updated again at the end of the school year once semester 2 is concluded. So juniors, you guys can pay attention for that. Again, semester grades is what's calculated into your GPA. This semester, we really encourage you guys to start researching schools on SCORE. You guys all have your accounts. If there's any account issues with login information, see your counselor. Will square that away for you. Obviously, as you can see the sub-bullet there, attending college fairs, tours, visits. February and April break are great times to visit schools. They're in session, colleges are in session, we're not, especially if there's travel involved. If you have a hard time traveling or booking some time, scheduling with your parents, we really encourage you to visit some local schools just to see what a college campus is like. There are plenty in our backyard here. Within 30 minutes, there's so many schools to look at, so it doesn't mean you have to commit to apply there, but then you have something, you have a starting point, and then when you go visit your second and third school down the road, you have be able to compare different options there. Developing a standardized test timeline. So speaking generally, I know the students who are ahead of the game here probably understand that many schools are test optional, and however, we want you to go through the process of speaking with your counselor, developing that timeline. If it's the SAT, ACT, second semester junior year, March, May, June, okay, figuring out when would be best for you, balancing your standardized testing with AP exams, finals, so there's a lot going on there. So I encourage you to talk with your counselor, think it through, spread it out so you're not piled all at once and being test heavy towards the end of the school year here. Recommendation letters, okay? That's something that always requires further conversation, I think, with your counselor. You're going to get a recommendation letter from your counselor, and we'll be meeting with you about that through the semester and into next year. But you should really think about 2 academic teachers who know you best and that can speak to your abilities of a student. Now, I know from all the students in attendance here, you're probably thinking about, okay, what class am I doing best in? And that's natural to think that way. But I really encourage you to think a little further than that. It may not be your best grade, but maybe there's a class that really challenged you. You have to stay after for extra help and show that extra effort to get a certain grade or to pass a test or a project that stumped you, whatever it may be. Maybe there's a class that you took a lead role in group projects, or you helped lead class discussions on certain topics. I think those are things you should really think about rather than just the grade. A teacher that knows you well and can speak to your abilities there. We encourage teachers from junior year. If you're struggling with that, speak to your counselor. We'll have a conversation about what is the best plan for you. Okay. June, developing that initial list on SCORE, your prospective colleges, and then obviously making an appointment. I want to spend the most time here on this last point, scheduling a time to meet with your counselor. Freshman and sophomore year, you've probably seen us for course registration. You saw our presentations in your English and World Civ classes, but this is really, you need to ramp things up, the frequency of meetings with your counselor. I find it so helpful with students that meet often and not just one large appointment, because there's updates to share based on your visits, conversations, experiences, ideas, whatever that may be, and then we can work off of that. And with this process, I can understand that it can be overwhelming and stressful for students and families. And I think breaking things up into smaller parts, over a to-do list of 2 or 3 items, and then moving on to the next 2 or 3 things, share an update on new visits, whatever that may be. Ongoing conversation is going to help you feel confident going through this process, and it will help us help you with sharing these updates and really naturally developing a relationship when it comes to us writing your letter as well. So it's helpful in so many areas there. So you guys will be meeting with your counselor for course registration in March, and we do have time booked in April to meet with us. But outside of those 2 times, you're going to see us for second semester and into next year. I think speaking with us is going to be very helpful in developing a timeline of when, how often you need to meet, and which leads into college research considerations. Whatever your timeline is. I mean, the college application process is really deadline driven. You see here, early decision, early action, regular decision enrolling, the ED, EA, RD enrolling. Early decision, early action deadlines usually range from November 1 to December 1 with select colleges that may have an October 15th deadline. So if you're thinking to apply early, then once you come back senior year, we got to get going, okay, with starting your application and getting things in line to make sure that is complete by the deadline. Regular decision, usually January 1 or later, with a few exceptions there as well. I'm not going to stand here and tell you when you should apply, have that be early or regular. Rolling, there's no deadline. You can apply pretty much any time throughout the year, but be cognizant of certain programs that may have particular deadlines. Nursing is always the classic example on that. So if you have a certain program you're interested in, that may have a particular deadline to get paid attention to. I think I've seen in my time, early decision, early action has become more popular. That may be appropriate for you, but it may be more appropriate regular decision for someone. There's not a general way that we want you to apply. It depends. It's student by student basis and school by school as well. So you'll hear from the panel how that is different for each school, but I think meeting with your counselor and finding when you're going to be most competitive is the starting point, not just I'm going to apply early to get it out of the way. This is a process. It's not an assignment to get it done as fast as you can. Also, researching programs and major offerings. Obviously, do they have the major that you want? Do they have co-op programs? Are you interested in studying abroad? What are the job placement rates? Things of that sort that could help you, really narrow your school list into what you're looking for here. And also going to admission expectations. You can see the sub-bullets there as well with high school course requirements. You're going to have a personal statement essay, and then which schools have supplemental essays as well. Going to campus services, resources, and then obviously the bottom bullet there is probably the most important one on the side for everybody in the room as well. Cost, financial aid, that will give perspective for all of you, I'm sure, and having conversations with the family of what kind of investment you want to make. So I think out of this entire slide, for the parents and students in the room, is having a family conversation of what your values are as a family and what you're looking for as a college, and kind of ranking those and see if the schools that you're looking at check those boxes. I think that's what it really comes down to. I'm sure that finances are in the top number 1, the top 2 or 3 at minimum for everybody here. But I think having that conversation and seeing what these schools offer for you is the starting point, and then bringing that conversation to your counselor and seeing how we can assist you in this whole process. Thanks.
Sure. Good evening. I am Jamie Lucier, also one of the school counselors, and I want to talk to you a little bit about a good number of schools to be applying to. But before I get into that, one word of advice I have for all the parents: pick one day a week and pick that day, whatever works for you. Maybe it's a Sunday breakfast, maybe it's Friday night dinner, like wherever works for your family. Pick that one day to have a college conversation. Because when we find that we're asking our children questions on a daily basis, they get very annoyed with us very quickly. and we find that they start to shut down and we sound like the peanuts. So what I recommend is find a day that works for your family and both student and parent come to the table with, here's my questions, here's my updates, and I think you'll find this process will go a little bit smoother in your head. So just a little bit of things that I'd like to share. So we're going to start when we're working with your son or daughter over a very large list. And then we're going to narrow that down by the end to hopefully 6 to 8 schools. So average students apply to 6 colleges. We'll look at what are some reaches, what are some realistic schools, what are some safety schools. I've had students in the past who have no reaches. All of their schools are realistic, likely to get into schools, and that's okay too. We just don't want to find ourselves on the end where they're all reaches. So we want to make sure that we have that balance when we're finalizing that college list. Let's see. So examples, like I said, 6 schools, kind of spread it out if you do have those reaches in there. Every school should be a school you want to attend. When I am working with my students, I will always say, do you want to go here? No matter if it goes from the reach all the way down to the safety, it has to be a school that you want to attend. And when we talk about safeties, not only is it admission safeties, but financial safeties. I have a lot of times when I'm working with students and I'll ask if you guys had that conversation at home, and they'll say, no, we've never talked about finances. So it's really helpful if you start having those conversations now as to, are we going to be okay with private schools depending on what the financial aid is? Are we going to be looking at schools that are a little bit more affordable? So then that way when we're meeting with your child, it is a conversation that we can have to help guide them. Junior timeline. So a little bit of this is what Mr. Diamantopoulos had already said. A lot of the work that you'll be doing is going to be over the summer. So you'll be narrowing down your list, doing your college visits. As Mr. Diamantopoulos said, school vacations are great times to go visit college campuses. Their vacation times are different than ours, so it's very helpful if they're still in session. You sort of look around and see, do I fit in here? I always say go eat. I'm a big food person, love to be in the cafeteria, so I always say go have lunch, look around and see, are the professors there interacting with the students? How are the students interacting with each other? It is a different feel from campus to campus, so going on those visits is going to be really important to help you narrow down what is it that you're looking for in a college campus. Beginning application and your Common App account, and we'll be going over this and talking with you in our one-on-one meetings coming up. Also in the fall, we'll be coming into your classroom doing school counseling seminars. We will have another evening that will be geared a little bit different called Nuts and Bolts Night. So not only will we be walking your child through the steps, we'll be walking you through the steps tonight and then doing a Nuts and Bolts Night senior year in September. We also have a boot camp opportunity that we offer for students to attend during the summer. It is we're doing a lottery again this year depending on the amount of students that want to attend, but more information will come out about that in the spring. They go over the Common App. We have admissions reps here to do mock interviews, English department teachers here to go over your essay. So if you're ready, it's a great opportunity to get that head start. I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. Russell.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean Russell, one of the school counselors. I'm just going to start with some do's and don'ts. First one, fill out the biosurvey and score. That biosurvey is it's a survey that students fill out, and that really helps us with our letters of recommendation when it comes to writing them. Also, there's a parent brag sheet that it's called brag sheet for a reason. We want you to brag about your student, give us all the information so we can put your student in the best possible light. Talking about finding the best fit, be realistic. I know Mr. Diamantopoulos and Mrs. Lucier touched upon this, but the list of schools that you really start to compile, and when you get down to that list of 6 or 8, you want to make sure that everything is the best fit between academic, financial, location, and all those other factors. When it comes to asking for the teacher recommendations, Mr. Diamantopoulos mentioned this, sometime in May, that's when we really encourage that, because a lot of our academic teachers write letters of recommendation over the summer. So it's great to get a jump start on that. And again, we recommend 2 teachers. Pay attention to the deadlines and all the accounts and passwords. Once you come to actually applying, you're going to learn to realize that each school that you apply to, they're going to send you a portal with a specific ID number and a password that you're going to have to keep track of. And it becomes a lot. So we recommend having like a Google Doc or a Google Sheet or writing it all down, old school pen and paper, whatever system works for you. Also with the deadlines, when it comes down to the early decision, early action, regular decision, rolling, it's very important. It's really nice to have all those deadlines just in one space. And then attending the nuts and bolts night, which is in September for seniors. Don't apply to over 30 colleges. This is certainly one. I feel like every year between those counselors we have conversations with students, and they come in with a list of 30 schools. And I don't know, speaking personally, I'll have conversations and I'll say, hey, what if you get into this school? Would you even go? They say no. The answer is no. It's like, hey, why are you applying, right? So that's why we really want to make sure that you're all doing research to get to number 6 to 8 to apply. Do not wait until the last minute, because it is a really big process, complicated process. We like to relate it as having an additional class in your senior year, in the fall of your senior year. So the earlier that you get started on this process, the better. Don't apply early decision if you're not absolutely sure. So if you apply early decision, you're required to sign a contract that says if you get into this school, you're going, no matter what. Okay, you won't be able to see your financial aid package beforehand. So when it comes to early decision, be sure that, hey, no matter what, this is my number 1 school, this is my dream school, I get in, I'm going, no matter the result. And then also don't avoid talking about finances at home. This is certainly, college is expensive, right? So being able to have these open, honest conversations with your student, with your parents about what is realistic, we highly encourage that. And I'll just reiterate what Mrs. Lucier said about that 1 day a week. If you can find that time, sit down, 30 minutes, an hour, however long it is, just to provide updates and make sure everyone's on the same page. So applying to college is not a simple or straightforward process. As we continue throughout the night, I believe you'll come to understand that, and as the year goes on, as senior year goes on. So every year in college admissions is different. You do all the research that you do. We do our research, right? But you cannot predict the characteristics of the applicant pool from year to year. It really is based off what the certain institution and their goals, what they're trying to hit. So if you're talking to your friends that are seniors right now, going through the application process, and say they got into a school that you really want to go to, there's really no secret formula, right? We just like to encourage you just keep doing the best that you're doing, and you follow your own path, and you're going to end up exactly where you belong, and thrive.
All right, so this slide deck will be posted to our website, so don't worry about trying to take pictures or anything. We will post this. I just want to mention all the school counselors that are here tonight. We have Mr. Diamantopoulos, Ms. Lucier, and Mr. Russell, who just presented. We also have Jess Rice here. She'll just give a quick wave. Ms. Tammy Young is over there, and Mr. Greg Stoloff, and Mr. Frank Flynn. And the caseloads are posted here for your student if you're not sure who your student's school counselor is. I just wanted to highlight, I found these quotes from 2 different admissions folks at different schools, and I thought that they were really, actually stole this from another school, but I thought they were really good to say. So the first one is, students should spend their high school years participating in organizations and activities that bring them joy. It always saddens me when a student or parent asks which clubs or organizations they should join to increase their chance of admission to college. Living one's life simply to please others is never a good strategy for happiness and personal fulfillment. By exploring genuine, authentic interests as you move through high school, you'll learn a lot about yourself and will be able to best showcase your talents to college when the time comes. So that was from Grant Gosselin from Boston College. And then the last one is, being your authentic self should come naturally and easily. Often in college selection and application process, we are faced with applicants who are forcing themselves into boxes that they think we want to check. We want you to become as you want to be here at our university. It's important that you, who shows up, is comfortable and doesn't sacrifice their own needs to fulfill some perception that this school wants this version of you, and this is how you will achieve enlightenment and the path to contentment. Okay, so moving on, I just thought those are really important to highlight as we talk about fit tonight, and I think that's the best thing we need to think about when we talk about college, the college admissions process. So I'm going to turn it over to our panel. We have 6 different colleges represented tonight. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and just give a brief highlight of the college that they're representing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Shrewsbury. I'm the Dean of Undergraduate Admission at Emerson College, and a proud parent of not 1, 2, but 3 Shrewsbury Public School students, 1 at Sherwood and 2 at Beale. Emerson College is in downtown Boston in the theater district. If you know where the big movie theater is, right in the Boston Common, we're right there at the corner of Tremont and Boylston. We are an arts and communication focused institution. We also have a campus on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, where our juniors and seniors can go. And we also have our very own castle in Netherlands, medieval 16th century something. So happy to be here tonight, answer any of your questions. I know they have a lot of them, and look forward to your questions.
Hi everybody, my name is Elena Morganelli and I'm one of the admissions counselors at WPI, so right down the street in Worcester, Massachusetts. We're an undergraduate institute of about 5,000 students and we have a strong emphasis on STEM, especially in engineering. We offer 12 different fields of engineering. Basically any form of engineering that you can think of, we probably offer it, but our most popular major is computer science. We have a big emphasis on project-based learning, so most of your classes you'll be assessed through projects rather than tests. Everything is really hands-on, and because we are project-based, we also offer global project opportunities, so being able to study abroad is built right into our curriculum, and being able to travel to different communities and use engineering to bring your perspective is something that we really value. So that's just a little bit about WPI, and I'll pass it on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your time tonight. My name is Pete Sines. I'm an assistant director and member of the Board of Admissions at Boston University. We are likewise downtown Boston. We're a West Side Story, we like to think. So we're on Commonwealth Avenue, where the marathon takes place, and Bay State Road, right on what we like to call the BU Beach of the Charles River, just across the river from Cambridge. We're about, I would say, best case, 45 minutes, so worst case, 45 hours from the Shrewsbury area, but all the while, right down the street, so to speak. We have about 17,000 undergraduate students. We have about 30,000 students total. In fact, in our graduate populations, about 300 different programs of study in 10 undergraduate schools and colleges. Extraordinarily academically flexible, so we encourage students to dual degree within a school or college, even double major across disciplines should they choose. But we offer a little bit of everything, so we very much encourage students to make the most of opportunities on campus or come in undecided. Well, about 30% of our students come in undecided throughout the application process. But that's a little bit about us. Again, thanks so much for your time.
Hello, my name is Rachel Mason. I am the Associate Director of First Year Recruitment at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I am also an unapologetically enthusiastic alum of the university, which is the flagship campus for the Commonwealth. We are a research institution ranked number 26 in the United States for public universities. We are 23,000 undergraduate students, about 6,000 graduate students. Our most popular schools are nursing, computer science, and business. We offer over 100 majors for our students to choose from. So I highly encourage you to come and drive the hour down to visit our campus. Yes, we are in Western Massachusetts, but when we are in session, our population density is second only to Manhattan. So we have a lot going on campus. I also could not agree more. Definitely check out the cafeteria when you come to visit. We've had #1 dining, according to the Princeton Review, for the last 6 years running.
Good evening, my name is Mario Silva Rosa, Director of Undergraduate Admission at Bentley University. Bentley is in Waltham, Massachusetts, outside of the city of Boston. We're pretty much a business-focused institution. Most of our students come in for finance, accounting, economics, marketing, management, certainly creative industry. Certainly those are the key areas where most of our students are attracted to us for. We pretty much have students from just about every single state in the country, about 100 different countries outside of the US represented on our campus. So in the population at the undergraduate level is about 4,200 students, including graduate, about close to 6,000 students. So certainly smaller in size, but it gives the students the opportunity to benefit from the quality interaction that is taking place in and outside of the classroom. So really excited to see many students come through our campus, visiting and taking a closer look. And I highly encourage every single one of you to take a closer look at us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe DeCarlo. I'm the Dean of Enrollment and Director of Admissions at Worcester State University. Just by show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Worcester State, been to Worcester State, graduated from Worcester State? Yeah, so we're only about 15, 20 minutes from here, public liberal arts and sciences university. Very familiar with the Shrewsbury community. Many students move on to Worcester State and or it might even be taking some college coursework already, been on our campus for athletic events, all that type of stuff. But really happy to be here with you tonight to answer your questions and to join my colleagues, some that I've known for quite some time and others meeting for the first time. So look forward to answering your questions and having a good evening tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Soboff and I are going to start out. We have some preset questions we'll ask the panel, and then we're going to open it up to the audience if they want to ask questions, so you can think about those. I think the first question that I'm going to have the panel address for each of their institutions is, what does the typical student who is admitted look like? What does their profile look like in terms of their GPA, their transcript? Do they submit test scores? So we'll kind of go through each school and sort of talk about what that student looks like if they're admitted.
The sequence works, so let's just So at Emerson, we are a test optional institution. We've been test optional pre-pandemic. To address the question of SATs and ACTs at Emerson, in the fall of 2022, only 28% of our incoming class had submitted a standardized test score. We were test optional pre-pandemic, and given the types of programs that we have, which may be different in other institutions, we are very much a holistic admissions approach, but not as much on the standardized testing. For our GPA, it was 3.7, so just about an A- on a 4.0 scale. And given the types of programs that we have in the arts and communications, most of our students are not declared. They usually declare their major at time of application. So it's very much at Emerson, we have students who know what they want from the get-go. And though they make changes while they're there at Emerson, we have a lot of students, let's say, in performing arts. So in our particular case, we have an audition process as well, not just with standardized test score and GPAs. Another thing that I personally value is your performance in 11th grade, so don't start slipping up. It shows progression and the most recent activity as you as an academic student, so keep going.
So at WPI, we like to say that we take a very holistic approach to the application process. So there is no one thing that will automatically get you in or get you out. Something that we're looking at are, most of our students are A's and B's, B's and A's, and we really look for rigor in a student's application because at WPI we do 4 terms during the year, and each term has 3 classes. So your classes meet every day. By October, you've already finished 3 classes, so it's pretty fast paced. So we like to see a good amount of rigor and that you've challenged yourself within the parameters of what your school offers. If your school offers 1 AP, we're not going to dock you if you've only taken 1 AP. We're also looking for evidence of being in your community and leadership, and our average GPA of an admitted student is a 3.9. This is not a minimum. We are looking at, I'm an international counselor, so I'm looking at GPAs out of 5, 7, 10, 12, and 20. So this is the best guess that we've sort of come up with, is our students are 3.9, but we like to say A's and B's, B's and A's.
Very similar. I know this word hasn't been said yet, but we are holistic as well. On our, we look at everything, every word, every sentence, every paragraph, on every page at BU. There is no better BU student. We're seeing students from truthfully all over the world. We saw about 168 countries represented on our application pool this past year, just as a frame of reference. When we're looking at our enrolled class, the average GPA was about a 3.8 unweighted, so before weight and rigor were applied. We are currently test optional and have approval to be test optional. As of right now, it's going to be a continually reviewed process, but up until the spring 2026 term at this point in time, unlike a lot of schools made that adjustment to test optional in terms of the pandemic. With us on our test optional in our enrolled class in this fall 2022 term, about 42% of those students applied without the inclusion of their test score. So it's very much so a conversation we like to try to have with the students beforehand. Do you feel as though that's a good indicator of what you're bringing to the table? If it's a perfect score, might I recommend applying with it? But if not, it's always about the comfort level of the student. But we look at academics, the numbers, the data that say a lot about the student, as in also the qualitative materials as well. So the student speaking on their behalf through the essay and personal statement. We have a why BU question we ask, but also those letters of recommendation that were brought up this evening, extracurricular list. We want to see what you're excited about so we can be excited in terms of your conversation with the Board of Admissions.
Just really quickly, I forgot to mention, WPI is test blind. We actually, if you send us your SAT scores, they will go into a black hole and we cannot see them. Please do not try to send them. We cannot consider them at all. As I mentioned, we're so hands-on and project-based that how well you do on an SAT doesn't actually mean you'll be a really successful WPI student. So a couple years ago, we actually are doing a pilot for being test blind, so we do not consider SAT or ACT.
I have a deal to make with you. If I don't stand up, you don't have to clap for me. All right. UMass Amherst is, I like to be referred to as a story of 2 universities. We have our highly competitive majors of nursing, Eisenberg School of Business Management, and computer science. Within those programs, you're looking at about a 10 to 30% acceptance rate. But as I mentioned earlier, we have over 100 majors. And when you're looking at other majors, the acceptance rate is somewhere between 60 to 80% of our applicants. So I highly encourage you to ask about your specific interest as it relates to your application. We're happy to provide you with that information versus going online and looking at the standard student profile, which would tell you that our average GPA is a 4.0. Certainly it's more on the 4.4 range for the students in the competitive majors, down more in the the A and B range for our other majors as well. Again, they're not any less quality majors, they're simply not as popular. So we definitely encourage you to consider them. We too are test blind. Last year, the majority of students who applied, who were accepted, who received merit scholarships, who were admitted to the Honors College, all did not submit their scores. And I encourage you to look at our mid-50 range. If your score is above that, certainly go ahead and submit. If it's below that, don't. It's all right. None of us are spending any time wondering why you did not submit that information. We have a myriad of other information data points that we can refer to as we're learning about you and whether or not it would be a good fit for the university itself.
Thank you. Bentley, I guess that you could think about what WPI said and BU said, and I'm not going to regurgitate all of the same points, but I think that the uniqueness of a student coming to Bentley is how they come across within the application as it relates to their level of interest in business. We're a business-focused institution, hence why we pay close attention to what we call the business fit, because we just don't have a wide variety of options for academics, for students to navigate in and out of different majors. We are an institution that pays close attention to a good balance, not only what you've done academically, within what's afforded to you at your particular school, and that curriculum that is in place here, for example, but at the same time, what you've done outside of the classroom. You spend more time outside of the classroom than in the classroom, and so we want to see how you've been able to balance your time throughout high school, whether it's part-time work, whether it's a combination of work and activities, organizations that you've been involved in, athletics. Some students are honing on athletics for 3 seasons, and that's merit to it. Some students do phenomenal things outside of school and even abroad. So certainly, I think that we are trying to figure out which students are truly interested in us, which students have the key tools that would allow them to be successful not only within the curriculum but the environment on our campus. And we do a lot of group work on our campus, so it's important for us to see perhaps some of those traits within your file or application. So I think that that gives us an opportunity to get a better sense. We have probably like 75% of our students that apply interview with us. We're heavy on interviews. We don't require interviews, but a lot of students take advantage of that, and we do take advantage of it from our end to just get a better sense as to exactly what that affinity level is like and why they would like to come to Bentley. So keep that in the back of your mind if you are thinking about a school like Bentley, that we do pay close attention to just about any data point.
At Worcester State, I think one of the reasons why I love working at Worcester State so much is because of the broad range of students that we have applying to our university. Our average student is around a B student, solid, 3.0 high school GPA, but we have many students that are well above that, that have really challenged themselves in high school by taking AP courses, honors courses, standard college prep, or even dual enrollment courses. And they certainly are prepared academically to be successful at our university, which is our utmost concern when evaluating students for admission. But we're also a university that supports students that maybe haven't quite yet reached their full academic potential, and they're demonstrating motivation to want to attend college because they see that as a means of improving their lives in society as well. 50% of our students are first in their family to go to college. And so our average GPA is around a 3.0, but we certainly welcome the opportunity to work with students that are above that average accepted student GPA, or perhaps might even be below that GPA, but again are demonstrating that they have the grit and will put in the hard work and determination to be successful in college.
Thank you. Just to give you a context of GPA, Shrewsbury High School's GPA is a weighted GPA, so we weight classes for AP or honors or academic level. We include all classes in our GPA, and it's on a 5.0 scale. So many of these folks were talking about a 4.0 scale, and they recalculate. So we can work with your student to help them recalculate their GPA to more of a 4.0, estimate that 4.0 GPA. But every high school calculates GPA differently, so that's why they usually recalculate. Okay, so the next thing I was going to have and not every school has to address this, but at Shrewsbury High we do not have a 4-year math requirement. Students are only required to take 3 years of math for graduation. But I wanted the colleges to talk about math courses and the selectivity around certain majors. So if you go into business, what sort of math class would you need? Would you need that calculus? For nursing, what sort of math class is recommended? Because I think that's an important piece for certain majors is the math course and or the science course, which is also a 3-year graduation requirement here. So whoever wants to address that.
So I can talk briefly because we're a business school. Pre-calc, it's good, bare minimum. Calc, makes you a little bit more competitive. AP Calc makes you even more competitive. So, but we've taken students with those 3 options that I just gave you. Although, I mean, I was reading an application today, and the student what's involving multivariable. So certainly be way above and beyond Calc, AB, BC. But I think that it will be important for students that are interested in coming to a school like Bentley to consider taking 4 years of math. That will be critical, just to be competitive within the pool that they apply, within.
So we do say that we have a 4-year math requirement, although it's not actually 4 years, but we just like to see that you've sort of maxed out the math that is offered to you. We do require that you've taken pre-calc in order to come in freshman year. If you haven't, we do have an option to take a virtual class over the summer, but we do offer that a little bit more selectively because we want to make sure that that's a student that really is interested in taking this math class and coming to WPI. The higher math classes that you can take, Calc AB, BC, that does make you more competitive, but we do have plenty of students that are taking pre-calc in their senior year. We just need to see your grade before we can make a decision. Every school is different, and I know for me, the math test I took in 7th grade decided what math class I was taking senior year. So we take all that into account. But we do like to see that you're taking advantage of the math classes that are offered to you. And if you have any inkling that you might be interested in anything STEM related, just take the math class because it'll only make you look that much better. Like I said, if you've maxed out your math by junior year, see if there is an option senior year because we do take into account, well, when they start, they won't even have taken a math class in a year. Will they be a little bit rusty when they get put right into that Calc class and they have to take their midterm after 3 weeks? So doing something, even if it's a Calc-based physics class that is showing that you are exercising those math skills all 4 years.
On our end, we don't have a consistent math requirement across the board. We'll encourage students to have at least 4 years of high school math taken if able, but it's not a hard requirement. 2 programs do have a hard requirement. Our Question School of Business and our College of Engineering look for calculus or some combination of that equivalent. With engineering, it's a hard calculus requirement. We can have students transfer into the College of Engineering and meet that requirement on-site at BU through our coursework. With the Question School of Business, it's either calculus in high school or it can be AP statistics and a combination of pre-calculus.
On the other end of the spectrum at Emerson College, if you are math inclined, then we welcome that, but if you are not, we also welcome that as well.
Thank you so much. One question that we get pretty often as school counselors is, should we apply EA, ED, or regular decision? We were hoping that you could speak a little bit to the benefits of each application scheme and maybe just who would be a prime candidate for EA versus ED versus regular decision.
We're calling it a scheme. On our end, so we have early decision round 1, early decision round 2, and we have regular decision. That criteria is subject to our applicant rules, so it can change. Early decision round 1 deadline is November 1st, early decision round 2, and regular decision are both January 4th. So if we were in a position where the majority of our applicants applied early decision round 1 and we were filling the space for our incoming first-year class based on that, it could be a little bit more competitive those following deadlines, and we're transparent on that. It can increase competitiveness, but as we were chatting beforehand, if we are your dream school, it's a great option to have. If we're not yet, if it's still being a conversation that's had or decided on, that's precisely why we have that non-binding regular decision, as well as that early decision round 2 option. You could very much so apply early decision round 1. We'll root for you every step of the way and hope for the best. But if anything changes and it's a similar timetable, you've still got early decision round 2 in the back pocket. But when it comes to our process, that's kind of how we'll go ahead and review our applications. It is binding with those 2 early decisions. Regular decision is non-binding. That's the bulk of our application pool. So we saw this past year about 58% of our students come our way in terms of the incoming class, enrolled class through regular decision. So it's not just early decision 1 and 2 and that's it. The majority are coming in on our regular decision year.
So a key distinction between early action and early decision, we talk about the binding aspect of it. And many institutions have what are called enrollment deposit or commitment dates that are different when it comes to early decision, but we all abide by this kind of May 1st or later signing date. Early action, for the most part, there's other rounds as well, but for early action, a key advantage is it buys you more time to then decide. And you can get a head start on things. You still will typically have until May 1st to make up your mind as to which institution you want to go to. But if you want to get started and kind of figure out which schools you can apply for and which ones you get in, it gives you more time to scope them out, weigh your options, start having those conversations. But in terms of whether it's binding or not, early action and regular decision it's just a matter of timing. Early decision, I can't stress this enough, and the school counseling staff have hit the nail right on the head. It's only if it's your dream school and you're ready to commit to it. Don't feel pressure to it. If you feel that way, talk to your counseling staff, talk to the school first before you sign all that paperwork and commit to it. Have the conversations first.
These questions are all good examples of the answer is it depends. It depends on the college or university, which is why it's so critical to keep the number of schools you're considering to a manageable number. We are incredibly transparent in our process, and if you ask us these questions for our individual schools, your individual major and situation, we're likely going to give you as much information as possible. So that's my big takeaway. The UMass Amherst offers EA, so early action, non-binding, as well as regular decision. I encourage students to apply when they're ready. That means that if you are on an upward trajectory and you need those senior year grades, then certainly consider a regular decision. If you are applying to our more selective programs, then definitely consider early action. It'll depend on when you are ready. We give all of this advice based on previous year's trends, just as much as we have a piece to play in terms of the university and what we're looking for in a class. You all have a big piece to play in it as well. Where you apply, if you apply early, you could screw up all of my calculations. Right? Who knew that psychology was become so incredibly popular? Who knew that 20% more applicants would apply EA? Does that mean that my RD pool is going to be equally large? No, not this year. Why? I don't know. So we really are giving information based on previous year's trends to the best of our ability and ask about your individual circumstances.
Okay. The next question, I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the admission essay and letters of a recommendation. So if some of the people can address what makes a good essay and how important are letters of recommendation.
We know about ChatGPT. We know. Our faculty are talking about it. We're talking about it in our offices. We know. Don't think you're going to slip it past us. With that in mind, your essays need to be about you. Don't think about what your admission counselor wants to read. Think about what you want to present as you as a student. Put your best foot forward. Talk about something personal, not always too personal, but talk about something that is meaningful to you. Also, over the summer, when you start getting your list of schools, find out what the essay prompts are. It's really important because 2 things we do not like to see. You write the wrong essay, or you confuse us with another school in your essay. It's just a pet peeve of mine when you say Emmanuel instead of Emerson. Your letters of recommendation, the most important thing is don't wait until the last minute. Because your counseling staff, your teachers, they're going to have a lot of work ahead of them in the upcoming cycle, and even still now. Start lining these things up early. Ask your evaluators, hey, can you write a letter of recommendation for me? Once again, your staff here mentioned it. It's not necessarily your best grade. Have somebody who has an interesting story about something you did as a classroom project or something memorable. These are the types of things we're looking for, things that make a student stand out. But once again, with the essays, we know about ChatGPT. But also, have it meaningful because we want to have insight as to who you are as a student.
Great, thank you so much. One highlight of Shrewsbury High is that we have a wide range of elective offerings for our students. We were just wondering, what elective classes factor into admissions at your schools?
So I will say, at least at Worcester State, I mean, we try to be as generous as we can, I guess, in considering students in the coursework that they're taking, assuming that it's being thoughtful and they're taking the courses because they're academically interested and obviously want to do well in the courses. We pretty much will take any elective course that's got academic content where the student is earning credit and receiving a grade for it. And we'll utilize those academic electives in the recalculation of their high school GPA. So that's typically how we approach it. Things that might not necessarily count would be courses that you're not earning credit for. Maybe a course like phys ed. Again, this is going to vary from school to school, high school to high school in terms of what they're awarding credit for or grades for. But generally speaking, if it's a solid core academic course, typically at the standard level or college prep level or higher, that you're earning a grade in, we would consider that a good elective to take. It would be factoring that in considering that in the evaluation of your academic transcript.
I would agree. I would say passion areas, interest, dedication. On our end, we love to see students that are applying to our College of Fine Arts, potentially our School of Music, and they have 4 years of some type of music-based class. It shows a year-to-year progression, especially if they're performing well in those classes. It doesn't have to be program-specific because we understand that majors can change, but we want you to take classes that you're interested in because that will reflect well on that academic.
For us, we don't place a lot of importance on what classes you are taking, except for that we like to see interest in STEM. So if you have an intro to engineering class, that will stand out to me. It won't be a requirement. It might not be the key that gets you in, but it says, oh, the student is interested in STEM, and they're probably considering WPI more than just an offhand school. So just more of that interest that aligns with our interests, which might be similar with other schools that have a specific area of study.
I think that is somewhat similar to us, but on the business side. So certain students will take some business courses at the high school level. I highly recommend for every student in this audience to pay close attention to, especially that senior year class schedule, whatnot. The reason why I'm saying that is because certainly we see students that have very strong business interests and have taken electives in that particular area, but they will sacrifice a core course, especially happens in their senior year, could happen in the junior year as well, a core course for an extra elective in business, just to show that they're highly interested in business. So I will highly recommend for you to pay close attention and stay away from doing that. Certainly take a business course your senior year, but we like to see the core: English, math, science, social studies, and foreign languages. The ideal scenario would be all 4 years, but we know that there's a lot of flexibility from one school curriculum to the next. But certainly taking a business course in Loyola core course may not be a great choice.
Speaking of world language, how important is world language on the student's transcript, and how many years do you recommend a student has?
I just said it.
Yeah, you did. Anyone else want to address that?
We'll encourage 2. It's all about the school and if it's offered. And I know somebody just like, yeah, I got 4. All in all, we'll encourage 2. If you have 4, we'll look at the eyes too consecutively. We see plenty of students that will apply with different languages. That's completely fine. We'll say, no, yeah, she's got 4 languages. But on our American Sign Language is another one as well. That's very popular, especially nowadays. So even if it's a language spoken at home, if you can document that, it's great to have that on your belt.
We like to see 4. We get a good number of students that do 3. One of the reasons why we're big on foreign languages is because as a business school, our students are truly engaged with a wide range of individuals from all over the world. And students tend to go abroad as early as their sophomore year. So we want students that have that affinity for languages and different cultures. So that's really important for us to pay attention to that trend.
As a state institution, we follow the state guidelines, and you can actually find them for all of the state schools at the Massachusetts Department of Higher Education Commission. We require 2 foreign languages. That being said, even within those state guidelines, we do have some wiggle room. So provide us with additional information, and that will be certainly taken into consideration. If you are applying to Japanese study and had never taken Japanese before, I'd find that odd. And same as when you're looking at going into engineering and hadn't taken calculus before. It's not that I can't admit you to the program. The question is, will you be successful if you haven't excelled in these programs before?
Okay, one last question before we turn it over to the audience. And this is, I would like to ask, what have you seen, what admission changes have you seen since the pandemic? Are there more applicants? Have admit rates decreased? How is the retention rate? There's lots of news out there about what's happening in college admissions since the pandemic. So I just thought we could address that.
We've seen more applications. That's a good problem to have, most definitely, but it can increase competitiveness, maybe a little bit of selectivity. I think test optional is a very, very good example of especially a change that's been instituted at a lot of schools regarding the climate. So in our, we're happy to be test optional, especially for the next couple of years, but I think that's the biggest right off the bat.
I'll jump in on this. I can't see you guys, though. But I think academically, I think all of my colleagues would probably say that we're seeing similarities with students, right? Because you all went through the pandemic together. So sophomore year, you all had sort of this inconsistency on your transcript, right? So we're all seeing that. And I think we're experiencing the residual effects of that as the students enter our campuses. I think we see, as well as everyone tried to do during the pandemic to adjust and pivot with learning, there was some learning loss. It happened at the secondary side, it happened at the post-secondary side. We had to go through a learning process that no one had ever experienced before. And then I think there's also residual effects in terms of the emotional well-being that the experience took on students. There was loneliness, there was increased stress and anxiety, and I think we continue to experience students coming onto our campuses that continue to struggle with that and I think are more open than ever in articulating that through the college admissions process. I think we could all say the days of the torn ACL sort of being the cliche essay topic has been replaced with the impact that COVID has made on their lives the last 2 years. And it's not to minimize because it's serious and it has certainly impacted students, but there's a bit, I think, of COVID exhaustion in general, and certainly that would be probably the biggest essay topic and that we're experiencing is we're reading applications right now and trying to figure out how we adjust and prepare for the students that are coming onto our campuses with more complex issues, both academically and socially and emotionally.
So a couple of things. So retention rates. So this is the percentage of students who start at an institution who come back in their second year, typically fall to fall is the most commonly used one. We've seen that return to normal levels. It took many schools between a 5, 10, even 15% decline in that fall 2020 range, but we've seen it largely come back. Applications are up. We've also seen this year, at least in our institution, a shift earlier It's a little bit more balanced EA than in prior years, which we talked about that in the slide earlier, how every year is a little different. So if maybe in a prior you got in at EA, this was, for our institution, a little bit harder because we saw a 22-something% increase year over year in EA applications. But it's, harsh December. But the other thing is, to echo the mental health aspect of it, we are seeing students who aren't as prepared on day one for the stressors of college. They're not prepared for living outside of their home. So these are conversations that you want to have with your student, with fellow students, fellow parents. If you know another family who has a student in college, talk to them about it. Talk to your counseling staff. It's really important that your student not just be academically ready, but life ready. And colleges are responding. We're hiring more mental health counselors, and we're paying more attention to it. But it's important that homesickhood was always there. But we're talking about deep-rooted anxiety coming out of the pandemic. We have families who are worried about, is there a direct flight from their hometown to Boston? That's a common question from folks in California, because they just don't want their student to have to puddle jump between different hub and spokes to have connections. That's a concern of people in California where it's like, all right, it's an hour drive. But that's a deep-rooted anxiety that came out of the pandemic that we never saw before. And that's on the family member side. But the students also, we've seen, the social skills aren't as there because they were inside for so long. So start having the conversations. When you're having your extracurriculars and your community service actions, think of those as preparation for college life as well, to get out of your head and get to the community.
That was a great answer. Okay, we're going to take questions. Try and scan the audience. So let's see, we're way back.
Thank you all for coming. Can you speak to graduation rates, retention, and job placement?
At WPI, we have a 95% retention rate from freshman to sophomore year. A lot of this is due to really close academic advising. We have an advisor that's a professor, as well as a general academic advisor. And there's really close ties with professors on campus, which is something that we attest to. After graduation, it's 96% go into employment or into a postgraduate degree. And that's continued even post-pandemic as well.
The employment, we're 90% at BU in terms of our employment rate within 6 months of graduation. Our Center for Career Development, we give them all the credit. They're the ones that are bringing employers to campus. We have an internal online resource called Handshake, where it's like BU-specific LinkedIn, but also that 6 months of graduation, the resources are still available. So it's not just a handoff and good luck. It's more so there through the process with students even post-grad.
97% retention rate and placement rate. Bentley is 99%. But we have the luxury of being an institution that has had long-standing great relationships in the business world, and we leverage that to our advantage for our students.
So we have a 97% retention rate going into the sophomore year. Depending on the major, it's typically a 90% unemployment rate. What we're very proud of is that we have an 80% graduation rate within 4 years. So the vast majority of our students are graduating on time.
So at Emerson, our retention rate fluctuates a little bit. It's right around 88%. Our graduation rate within 6 years is 80%, 78 in 4 years. One of the things about Emerson with career placement is we took a significant hit given the fields that we teach. Broadway was shut down. Film production was shut down. So right now, our career placement rate isn't as good as it used to be. So I think the latest publicly available for the class of 2020 is the one we have posted, which is not a good year for Broadway and for film production. Was 60%. But that's just a real reflection of what the types of programs we teach.
I guess I can go. I sort of am I think it's important to put into context, right? You just heard everyone say 90-ish placement rate, right? It's like rankings, it's all relative. There are some majors, the students have 100% guarantee of a job when they graduate because it's in such high demand. And then there are other jobs that the graduation rate isn't as high, right? So they're good. It's a good question to ask. It's relative, though, in the context, right? So I don't want there to be a perception that a lesser job placement rate means that the institution isn't graduating students that aren't as competitive, right? There's a lot of factors that go into things like graduation rates, retention rates, and so it's a great question to ask. It's important context in your individual college search process, but it shouldn't be the true reflection of all the institutions, all the great colleges and universities that are out there. At Worcester State, we average in the 90s as well for placement rate. Our retention rate from freshman to sophomore year is a little bit lower. It's in the 80%. But we have a very different demographic of students attending our university than some of my colleagues here. Our students oftentimes are working to help pay for their education. They're juggling jobs, they're juggling family commitments, and sometimes those added stressors can create barriers that don't put them on that same path as peers that maybe aren't dealing with some of the same family or personal experiences. So I just want to throw that out there just to kind of keep those things in mind, because like those statistics can be filled with a lot of other variables in those calculations, very much like rankings, right? So thank you for letting me share that, and that's why I kind of held off till the end. So. Get off my soapbox.
Anyone else? Yes.
The question was applying undecided. I realized folks in the back might not have heard that. So on our end, like we were mentioning earlier, we see about 30% of our incoming first-year class come in undecided, undeclared, exploratory, there's different buzzwords, different schools. The all-time high joke is that it's the most popular major in there, right? And a lot of times, 17 or 18 years old, they don't really know what they want to do. They find out what's out there once they're out there. That's the way I was. I started off saving too many lives, making everyone just kidding. Didn't last a day, didn't last a week. So for me, I changed my major, and that's very common for a lot of students. So on our end, it's the same university admissions requirements across the board. You're not tied to a particular major. You can dual degree, you can double major, but you don't have to stay in that entire program the entire time. You have the flexibility to be able to update that, change that, dual degree and double major. But it's very popular, especially. Some programs might have an extra step, sometimes a requirement, depending on the program with the admissions process. Our College of Fine Arts might have a theater review in terms of the audition, music review with our School of Music, or a portfolio review with our College of Visual Arts. Our College of Business, we talked about the math requirement, calculus, and pre-calculus, and things like that. That's just an extra step. So for anybody that might be leaning towards one of those routes, I would say it's probably like that standardized test. It's better to have that completed and not need it rather than need it and not have it. But on our end, it's good flexibility. Just one quick thing around applying by major to keep in mind is that there are some colleges and universities that have direct entry only programs. For instance, at Worcester State, it's our nursing and occupational therapy program. At a previous institution I was at, it was the PharmD and physical therapy program. So there are some that are very restrictive. You can't do an internal transfer. You can't change major at a later time. So if you are thinking about applying into one of those more selective majors, whether it's in the engineering field, whether it's in the health sciences, it is a good clarification question to ask is if the program is direct entry or if there's the opportunity to change majors into that program at a later time, because some institutions are restrictive in that manner.
At WPI, about 20% of students come in undecided, and we have institutional acceptance. We do not accept by major. And actually, after that, half of our students change their major at least once while they're at WPI, because we have really flexible curriculum. We don't do required classes, so it's pretty easy to sort of take one class and apply it to a different major. So even though only 20% are unsure when they come in, actually about half of students are unsure what they actually want to pursue after that first term. So we do have that flexibility in changing your major once you have enrolled.
I bet we, believe it or not, over 50% of our students come in undecided, but they are interested in business. So our job when we go through the evaluation process is to figure out exactly if this is going to be a good match. Because we know a lot of students come in undecided. And what that means for us, it's funny because it's undecided, but for me, what that means is, and for the students, it's the fact that they are interested in a lot of different areas and they just can't settle, whether they're going to be economics and finance, or they want to be finance, straight finance, or business economics or quantitative economics, or marketing. They just can't figure it out. There's so many, options available to them to combine that it's hard for them at the beginning of the process to settle. So they just come in undecided business. So it's really interesting that more than 50% of our students come in undecided. You are applying to Bentley to get into Bentley, so you're not applying to a specific major. You have up to your sophomore year to declare your major, so you have a lot of flexibility before you settle on what you would like to study.
Are there any courses where the students can get some exposure to individual colleges? Like Bentley, are there any business courses where the students can take during their senior year, which are part of the college? That way they get an exposure, and if they do that, is that having a preference in their admission?
There is a course I'm just going to go over to make sure I understand the question. We call it first year seminar on our end. It's primarily resource referral. So knowing exactly who your point of contact is from an academic advisor in a particular department, or if you're exploratory, you're undecided who that is and which department based on the starting point in college and school. That's the course that we offer there. It isn't specific to major. If you are undecided and you're in a first year seminar class, you're getting an exposure to a little bit of everything academically. So you have these kind of starting points to go off of. So I'd like to learn more about this program. This would be the point of contact.
Can you see that before the
Do you mean in high school? In high school?
Unfortunately not on our end, yeah. So it'd be once they're on site at BU. Our job is resource referral on kind of that front line, talking about what we do offer, even what we don't offer, the requirements for each program and things like that. And then when it gets to a certain point, especially go and do a deep dive program where it might be a referral to the department at that point in time themselves.
So I'm not sure about the high school option, but for us, students within the first 2 years take the equivalent of a minor in business administration. So you will be exposed to all the different areas within business, like marketing, management, economics, supply chain, etc., finance. And then that really allows the students. And then we also marry those first 2 years with arts and science courses as well, arts and sciences. So the student will have a breadth of a background before they jump into a particular area that they would like to major in. But at the same time, you might be coming in with an interest in finance, and then within those 2 years, you say, well, maybe I want to go into economics, or maybe I want to go into marketing, or creative industries, or professional sales. So because you took a variety of courses and you sparked an interest through those, so certainly that's an option.
I would recommend looking if any of the schools that your child is interested in has a summer camp, because we have one that is not for credit, and then which is a residential program, and then we have one that's not residential, but it is for credit. They're different styles. They're both, one is Frontiers and one is College Credit Jumpstart. But in the question of does that give them an advantage, it just shows so much interest that they took weeks out of their summer to spend it at that institution. And they are able to get a little bit of a flavor of what it's like to live on that campus, and maybe even in that city if it's a new one for them.
Yeah, I have a question. How do you speak to the cost of attending school in any of the campuses without scholarship? And then how do you speak to scholarship?
Sure, very happy to. For in-state tuition and room board comes to about $30,000 a year. as a state institution, I'd say you've already been paying for your son or daughter's tuition at UMass Amherst for the last 17 years. So that is what the top dollar amount. Merit scholarship is available based on exactly that merit. It's awarded at the time a student is accepted. It can range from anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 typically. The average package last year, combining merit and financial aid in-state, was $17,000. Of course, though, it's going to really depend on individual family situations. What's great about the May 1 deposit deadline is that you'll have an opportunity to evaluate the schools from which you were accepted, what their financial aid packages are, and have conversations with the financial aid office as well.
I'll just jump on after Rachel because I'm the same public university, so we're actually a little bit cheaper than UMass, or more affordable than UMass. But yeah, I think every family should have a public university on their list. It's a great option, high quality academics, but again, at a relatively affordable cost. I always say relative because college is expensive no matter where you're going, right? $22,000 all in could be very affordable for one family, but could be a financial stretch for another family. But our commitment as a public university is to keep our costs low and to try and make the university as accessible to as many students as possible through our need-based financial aid program as well as through our merit scholarship program.
We might be a little bit more of an investment as a private institution. On our end, cost of attendance, including tuition fees, room and board, is about $82,000. It's a big, scary number on paper as a starting point. When we talk about financial aid, when we talk about scholarship, we navigate that conversation. So as a private institution, it's the same cost whether you're in-state or out-of-state. With that being the case, we do meet 100% demonstrated need. So we're going ahead and using the FAFSA pre-application for federal student aid as well as the College Board CSS profile to go in and kind of bridge the gap with that household information to see what we can go ahead and meet in terms of demonstrated need. Now, because we're private, because that's an initiative here at the U, we'll go ahead and have most of our financial aid be need-based aid. 2 scholarships that we have available are a presidential scholarship, which is for $25,000 renewable all 4 years, and then we have our trustee scholarship, which is for the full cost of tuition. They are not impacted by how a student applies, whether it's regular decision or early decision 1 or 2. It's the same review process, it's the same competitiveness. But on that note, the only big difference and mentionable would be that it's a December 1st deadline, however a student applies. If they're applying for early decision, already meeting that in November. If they're applying regular decision or early decision 2, they just need to push up their timetable by a month. That's kind of
WPI is similar, about $80,000 a year of full cost of attendance. Merit packages range between, or merit scholarships range between $15,000 to $35,000. If anyone here does FIRST or VEX robotics, there are some full tuition scholarships for any student that participates in that. We also offer need-based financial aid. At WPI, you can move off campus after your first year, live in an apartment. This significantly decreases how much you're spending on room and board. And then another thing that we always like to talk about is that our students have a really great return on investment. And you can go online and actually see the average salary that all of our majors are making post-grad if you search WPI Career Outcomes to also help you decide if that investment is going to be worth it for you for what job you're looking to have post-grad.
So there is so Bentley it's about 80,000. We have scholarships from 10,000 all the way up to full tuition. We also, I don't know what else we have. What else? Anyway, a need-based aid. But at any rate, every single institution has to have a calculator on their website. It's mandated, so you could go and find that calculator. We also have another calculator which is called My Intuition, and it's a great opportunity because it'll request information that it's really important for us to know as opposed to the mandated calculator by the government, and it gives you a pretty good understanding as to where you will fall financially within our financial aid strategy or I guess calculation. So certainly I highly recommend for all of you to consider looking at the websites of the different institutions and pay close attention to the calculator.
So at Emerson, ditto. Just across the board. I'm going to give two pieces of advice regardless of any institution, though. We were talking about the FAFSA. It opens on or about October 1st for the 2024-2025 year, which is most of when your students will be applying for. This is free. It's ubiquitous. It's used by every institution in the country that is eligible to disperse federal financial aid. Do it even if you don't think you will qualify. Because at the minimum, you can qualify for federally backed and lots of, especially in terms of deferments and forbearance, there's lots of features associated with these federal loans that you can get compared to private loans. You may also qualify for state grants or state loans. Do the FAFSA. Even if you don't think you qualify, just do it anyway. This opens up for juniors, it'll open up in October. Another thing. You can apply for private scholarships that you can port over to any institution. There is literally tens and hundreds of millions of dollars of private scholarships that go unapplied for every single year. And sometimes it's for $500 or $1,000. But we talked about keeping your wits about having a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet. Log into these websites. Don't ever pay for them. Create a separate email account because they can spam you pretty bad too as well. But create a separate email account, like fastweb.com is a popular one. It's free. And you can get these scholarships and it can help pay for your books in your first year or help pay for a portion of your room and board. Do these and it adds a little bit of extra flexibility for you. Do that for any institution, for any cost, wherever in the country. The FAFSA and something like fastweb.com, which is for private scholarships. Also talk to if you're affiliated with any community organizations or church institutions. They may have scholarships. Think about those as well, because those can really help when it comes down to affording college anywhere.
I'm sorry, the name of the calculator, Joe told me, net price calculator, that's what it's called.
Two quick things, and then we'll take one or two questions still. Financial aid night. We, in the past, ran a financial aid night that was done by MIFA, which is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. They had sort of stopped it and did webinars, but they are back in school, so we will plan on hosting one of those next fall. And that's all about how to fill out the FAFSA. Second thing is scholarships. We do, so right now seniors, we have a website that seniors can go on to, and we post a bunch of different scholarships, private scholarships. And then in the spring, late February, March, we'll post a bunch of local scholarships. So these are businesses in the community that give out scholarships just to Shrewsbury High School students. So there's those opportunities as well.
It varies. So the question was, what's the requirement for how long a student has to live on campus? It'll vary from institution to institution. UMass Amherst requires that students live on campus their first year, but then 75% stay.
Same here, first year only, and about 85% of the students remain on campus all 4 years.
At Worcester State, we don't have a housing requirement, but we do guarantee housing for those that want it for 4 years.
We also have a first-year requirement, so we require first-year students to live on campus, guaranteed all the way through senior year, which we're very proud of, especially being a metropolitan hub, and we say about 85% of students will stick around all 4 years.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we only require the first year. It's not guaranteed for the remainder of the 3 years, but we're not going to kick anyone off. About a third of students stay and are able to stay very easily. A third of students live off campus, and a third of students live in Greek housing.
At Emerson, it's currently a 3-year housing requirement. We talked about kind of urban, suburban, rural institutions, and that can dictate it because especially if you're applying to an institution that's in the middle of a city with a lot of people who come from outside of the area, there's going to potentially be a longer housing requirement because it can be tough to find housing, especially in a short time.
We have early decision. That's the only early program that we have, and it doesn't affect your chances. Yes.
Same on our end. It's the same review process, no matter how they apply regular decision or the early decision notes.
So I know there was the GPA, there was the essay, and then the presentation. Is there any other, place that the students can support else that other than the essay? What does this college, get from the students?
That's a great question. What else? It's going to depend on the school as well, as we were talking a couple questions ago. Sometimes there might be an interview option. Sometimes there might be an interview requirement. Sometimes demonstrated interest is a huge buzzword nowadays as to us on our end on the admission side tracking to see if you might have already come for a campus visit or connected with us at an event on the road or something, or at your high school or something along those lines. Depending on the application, depending on the school, there might be a supplementary essay, an additional writing sample that might be a little bit more specific to that institution. It all adds up. When we're talking about that holistic review, there's not one thing that might be more or less important, but all about that big picture and having more as opposed to less to it.
An important thing is look up over the summer what the requirements are by program at certain institutions, what they require. If you're applying to, let's say, a theater or performing arts or an arts space, many times they have auditions, pre-screens, dance calls. They may have portfolio requirements. Many institutions allow you to upload optionally portfolios or connect a portfolio you may already have. Check those out on their websites this summer as you're getting your list of schools. The common ones that we all have, check off those boxes, but if there is a supplemental requirement like an audition, make sure you do those on time. They fill up fast. We're a heavy performing arts school, and we have to pre-screen for a program like musical theater. So there's even there's an online dance call that you have to do first. So there's a lot of requirements depending on the program. Make sure that you know about them in advance and you stay on time with them.
Okay, one last question, and then I'm going to ask these guys one last.
If such a program exists at your institutions, how do athletics and recruiting play in the application process? Can you talk a little bit how that works at your university or school?
D1, that means that I'm here and the athletic recruitment is way over there and I don't even recognize them. So the important piece is that to know the institution and to know what they're looking at. If you are looking as a D1 player, then you want to contact their office, and there is a whole recruitment process. You will need to go ahead and do your NCAA status and all those pieces, and I say this very vaguely because I purposefully know very little about it. But it is a different admissions process, and there are specific, and not to say that it's preferential or anything of that sort, but there are individuals who that is their specialty.
So it very much depends on the division that you might be applying for. NCAA Division I is very, very particular. There's certain scholarships that they are allowed to offer. When you get down to D2 and 3, that's not really a thing. But things like official college visits, there's a maximum you can do. I think it's 2. Everybody wants to check on that. But there's a certain number of official college visits that the NCAA is allowed to do. But just like Rachel was talking about this firewall, the admissions office and the athletics office. I'm the athletics coordinator at Emerson, and I kind of take a swerve around the athletics office whenever I'm walking around. But the important thing is that on your application, talk about any leadership thing. And you can put in your essay about a challenge you've had. We've had many student athletes who got hurt in a season and then miss a season, and talk about that. That's an interesting bounce back story. Another thing is, and we were talking about, go to the athletics site of these schools, and there's usually like a recruit me button. Click on that, fill out the information, and do that in addition to the admissions office. Do them separately because we very much have a firewall between us for lots of really good reasons.
Okay, one more. This is where it gets hard.
is there a difference between having your letters of recommendation both be from humanities versus both be from STEM, or is it best to have a mix of the two?
Great question.
There isn't on our end. I would say we want to hear from anyone. Literally, it was brought up earlier. The teacher that knows you best. It can be a program specific. That's great. If you know that's your major, that's always been your major. That's not going to change. But I would say the teacher that knows you best doesn't have to be the teacher that saw you had a natural gift for the material and got that. Not that it was wrong, but that easy A. It can sometimes be that teacher that saw you get there early, stay late, come to free periods and advisories, and come to study hall and really fight for that year's seat, especially if it was a weighted class. So I would say if you're thinking either or, just start thinking about, especially I think that May was a great deadline and going into the summer. Who knows you best and how do they know you best and what can they really say on your behalf? And especially if they're two different perspectives, I think really go hand in hand.
And just to echo that, it really is about your teacher knowing who you are, being able to recite a story about something in class or out of class, or how you challenge yourself and staying late. We talked about that. If you're applying, let's say, a writing program, it wouldn't hurt to have an English or writing faculty member. But it really needs to, if anything, you want it to showcase yourself and the quality of writing. That's really it, but really it's we're looking for that connection that you had with a member of your faculty. It's not as much about, we get a lot of applications, a lot of essays, a lot of letters of recommendations. The ones that stand out, we can almost transport ourselves into your shoes or your teacher's shoes or your school counselor's shoes, and really we're almost talking to you face to face. If we get that kind of connection, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, one last, not even question, one kind of statement I want each of the panel members to say to kind of round this out is, in like a sentence or two, what is the top reason a freshman is most successful on campus their freshman year?
Go to class. Best thing you can do.
I think for us, it's a combination of being able to get up to go to class, but at the same time have that willingness of engaging with others. It's really important for us as a business institution. I think that we really want the students to start developing those connections. And we try to foment that during the orientation program, and we like to see that coming to fruition.
It's the last question, so I'm actually going to take more than one sentence. If you currently receive any type of support in school, 504 or an IEP plan, it is really, really important that you connect with disability support on campus. Every school that is represented here, because we receive federal funding, must comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. That is different than 504 or IDEA, which you are currently under. The big difference is that it's about access. And what I really, really want to hone in on is that students who go to support services graduate. That is what we know factually. But I also know that only about 25 to 30% of you will ever actually access supports on campus, which is why your graduation rates will be around 30%. Dyslexia, ADHD, autism spectrum, hearing impairment, visual impairment, anxiety, depression. These are not commentaries on your intelligence. They are not failings of you on a moral basis. It's important that you be successful. I wear glasses. Nobody else really notices it. Makes a big difference for me. I can hand them off to you. They're not going to help you. It's the same way with disability support. So if you want to be successful, understand what is available to you. Bring that information early on. Disability support is a staffed position typically, which means they're around during the summer, unlike our faculty. So you can go before you are enrolled to make sure that you have that connection. Go there with an open mind. Remember that your IEP and 504 plan are no longer legally valid. They instead can help guide the process as you make that transition. So prepare yourself and give yourself every advantage possible. I'm not taking my glasses off when I drive home. It's a benefit to me and everybody else on the road. And I really encourage you to prepare yourself in that regard.
Great piece of advice.
to Rachel's point, my mom's a gardener, so she loves to say, bloom where you're planted, make the most of the resources that are available. You will get into college. Wherever you go, you're going to have success opportunities, and it's a matter of making sure you're the most successful you that you want to be. So I would say academically, extracurricularly, that's what my mom loves to say. My dad's very partial in saying, remember why you're there. I take that with everything I do in terms of working with students, especially that I remember my college experiences. Student always comes first. Student athlete, it's spelled that way for a reason. No matter what you're doing, just make sure you remember why you're there. You make the most of it, but you remember why you're there.
I would say don't do it alone. Find people to study with and go to the activities fair and join a club. Even if you don't stick with it all 4 years, it's going to make your experience that much richer and you're going to meet people that much quicker.
Your student needs to check their email. Your faculty and the offices on a college campus will be primarily using email. They need to check their email. Every piece of information, every announcement, every college happening is happening in their email. They need to check their email. In their first semester, don't overload yourself. Don't try and take a job that's 2-hour drive away. Find an on-campus job. Find something where you can ease into things. Don't sign up for a club, not 10 clubs. You just don't. You want to kind of ease into this and check your email.
Thank you so much. I want to give these guys a big round of applause. Thank you for attending. We are recording this. This will be posted along with the slide deck. Give us a week or two to do that, but it will be available. Thank you again to our panel.